Hello, Uday. Finally, thank you. I managed to get you on my podcast. Every Sunday I listen to your Aditya Hridayam YouTube
Oh,
one,
thank you so
and
much.
I think it is something. It is a mantra that is very close to my heart, and
Mhm.
also your Gayatri mantra video. I always go back to my reference because Gayatri mantra is one mantra which is very difficult to understand what each word means, even though you
Yeah,
know the meaning of the whole mantra, but
right.
going to each and every word what it means because it has
True,
its
true.
own sequence.
Correct.
So you are someone that I listen to very often, many of
Thank
the
you so much.
mornings, and finally I have you in my podcast. It's a fantastic
My
honor.
pleasure. My pleasure. My pleasure. Totally. Thank you so much for getting in touch. In fact, as I told you, I knew about your retreat, and many of my friends have actually suggested that there's this beautiful place that you should definitely visit in Kerala. And I've been just I've seen your videos on YouTube,
Mhm.
and when you messaged me, that then I shared that screenshot. Guys, look, this is the guy, this is the person you suggested. His message me. It's wonderful hearing from you, and thank you so much for inviting me. My pleasure being on your podcast.
Thank you, Uday. So, Uday, what was your starting Mohan with this Sanskrit channel? I mean, the way you explain Sanskrit is so easily entertaining. I mean, I say that learning should always be an entertainment, and that is one thing I see that is common with your videos. So, what was your waking up call to start teaching about Sanskrit? I mean, you're an engineer with your background, and what
Yeah.
got you into teaching Sanskrit, and also with how telling people how to chant mantras, which I'll be going
Mm,
in detail, but I
sure.
would love to, have the
Yeah.
listeners hear your story on this.
Okay. So the two aspects to this are, there is teaching and there is Sanskrit. And I love uh, being able to explain something, being able to teach, because if as a teacher, any teachers listening to this podcast might identify with this, that if there is immense joy in learning something new, in exploring. Exploration is innate for every human being, and when somebody knows something new and explores that concept new and understands it, there is a joy, there is a tangible joy you can see in the students' faces, and that that's something I got hooked to very early on. So, and
It's
I
like a
myself,
dopamine relief.
I don't know how it works, but there's in
Joy,
the
yes,
students' faces you
excitement.
have that spark, that they have understood something new that they've never understood before at a very intuitive level. So even I try to understand whatever I approach in a very intuitive sense, and unless I understand something from the very basics of it, like the very core of how it works, I can't really wrap my head around these abstract concepts very easily. That is a strength at one level, a weakness at another. But I try to get to the root of everything. Unless grab any subject at the very foundations of it, I can't get the whole picture. I don't feel comfortable with that subject. So I used to approach everything like that, like physics, which was my favorite subject in school growing up, and engineering. I just passed through engineering, just struggling. I did engineering just because because of economic reasons, that I need to get into a job, a well-paying job, and get settled in life with a salary, and get financial security. But so in engineering, that I was not very keen on studies as such.
Hmm.
But I graduated from a college called BITS Pilani in India.
Oh,
So
it's a very
we
reputed college. It's
yeah,
quite
it is one
difficult
of
to
the
get in
premier
there.
institutes. But
Exactly.
one good thing is we don't have compulsory attendance. So you need not attend any of the classes. And there are a lot of electives. So there are, and this college has humanities and a diverse set of courses. So I just took up technical writing and theater, and whenever I could, I just picked all odd subjects. And so, keeping that aside, I had a knack for languages since
Hmm.
childhood, not specifically Sanskrit, but I we used to get transferred every 3 years.
Hmm.
My dad being in a bank job, we used to get transferred around. So wherever I went, I found these nuances of language very fascinating. So different words in different languages mean the same thing. How the same concept, same thing, same word can mean different things in different languages.
Hmm.
Sometimes something is the sound of something that is conveyed. is the same irrespective of which language you speak that in. So
Mm-hmm.
all these nuances of language, I found it very fascinating. So I developed that knack for languages. And during my job, when I was in after my college, I did get into campus placements and then job, and that is when I started looking for hobbies to to just entertain myself and keep myself um interested you know in some
That's
pursuit
how you
because
found
I
your dharma. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it took a lot of time to realize that that is what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, I can see that path clearer. That this is what these set of decisions and these set of circumstances were what led me to where I am. But when I was doing it, I had absolutely no clue. I was just picking things up randomly as I
Mm-hmm.
could see them back then, just for just for the fun of it. And yeah, so I picked up Sanskrit as a hobby because I was looking for all sorts of hobbies, and one of my colleagues who was looking at the odd hobbies and skills that I was picking up on, he said he wanted to learn Sanskrit, and he had these set of books, the Bhagavad Gita set of books, which were published by Sanskrit Bharati. He said, "Why don't we sit together and try and learn it?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally, why not?" And as you said, before we started the podcast, that there is this perception that Sanskrit is a dead language, and of
Mm-hmm.
course, I was fascinated. Okay, there are resources and there are still texts that are available to approach it, so why not? And unwittingly that was my foray into learning Sanskrit, and Bhagavad Gita being what it is, kind of initiated me on a path that I did not I did not uh, intentionally want to
Get into.
step into. Yeah, but yes, that is how my introduction to Sanskrit started, and having this knack for languages and sounds and nuances of expression, and at the same time having this passion for teaching and getting a kick out of just learning stuff at an intuitive level, all that somehow tied very well with with Sanskrit, especially because the language itself is very intuitive. Once
Mm-hmm.
you know any Indian language, you see that a lot of vocabulary is borrowed from Sanskrit, and there is a reason why it is borrowed from Sanskrit. And so that is how it started, and that study of Bhagavad Gita and Sanskrit slowly led me towards Yoga Sutras, then the practice of yoga itself, and then it led me to take some life decisions. I quit my job, and a lot of things happened in span of over a decade,
I just
which
realized you have actually made a huge playlist of Patanjali Yoga Sutras,
yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
Wow, the volume of work that you have put up
I,
in Sanskrit channel is just enormous. I
thank
think you
you,
just started
thank
scratching the surface. I could see that.
exactly, exactly. So each of these sutra, I mean, I just try to, as I said before, try to express what I have learned and what has been of value and what I have understood in my limited capacity. But that possibility itself is so wide. There are
Mm-hmm.
such wide range of topics, and that is one of the reasons why I took it up online rather than conducting workshops offline, which I was doing before. Because if I do it offline,
Mm-hmm.
if I conduct a new batch, I'll have to repeat myself. I'll have to teach
Exactly,
the same
exactly.
things again.
Yes, that's the beauty
But if
of
I do it
technology. On the other hand.
exactly, exactly. So I do it online. If I do it well enough once, I can move on to newer topics of exploration for myself.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
So that is one of the reasons I took it up online, apart from a broader reach and better
Exactly.
monetary sense and all that stuff. And now I have a scope of moving on to newer and newer topics of exploration because there are so many, from
And how
music,
are the interests?
medicine,
Are
martial
more
arts.
people showing interest in learning about Sanskrit and mantra chanting?
Mantra chanting, coming to that specific part, yes, people know the benefit of it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, it's the initially people, I know they start everything with a skeptical mind,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
especially
completely
if
relate
it's
to that. Yes.
yeah, and especially if it's something foreign, and if
Mm-hmm.
it's something they have not been exposed to as children, and they don't start with a certain level of confidence in that subject, that skepticism kind of turns to denial or
Mm-hmm.
rubbishing something, because they can't identify with or really understand that something that profound can actually exist, or something that meta, identifying that with uh, with knowledge that is not in terms with what you have learned so far and what has been
Hmm.
established as set knowledge system so far. So people only know about body and mind. So they know putting some pills or doing something with their mind can be of some benefit, but uttering something repeatedly, it can bring about a physiological benefit that some sounds cuckoo to somebody who is looking at it from an external perspective.
Oh,
So
I'm so looking forward to enter that word, enter that part that I want you to know how words can
yeah,
actually change a person's
yeah,
emotions, physiology, the hormonal
exactly.
release.
Yeah, yeah. So the mantra chanting right now, it as you the going to the initial question, many people have started understanding its relevance with popular popular media. This the system of chakras and the energy
Mm-hmm,
body,
mm-hmm.
5 layers of physical body. Uh, the 5 koshas as they call it. All of this has become accepted knowledge now.
Mm-hmm.
There is a newer challenge that they're trying to adapt it and bring it new terminology. They are trying to call uh, pranayama cardiac coherent breathing.
Oh yes, yes, yes. I've heard about
And
that.
then
Yes,
they're trying
exactly.
to adapt stuff and
It's going to be
because they're
remixed.
starting to, yeah, they're starting to identify that there is some authenticity and benefit to all these
Definitely.
knowledge systems. So yes, as a system of healing, as a system of holistic well-being, chanting mantras and doing breathing exercises, mental focus, these 8 limbs of yoga. The how can something as simple as cutting down on your food or changing your food habits or retracting your senses from sensory objects, how can these bring about such large scale transformation in a body? Now slowly people are trying to understand it, and especially uh, once it gets this a stamp of authentication from the western medicine, then a larger set of audiences
Yeah, yeah.
gravitate towards it. But as audiences on whatever I have done so far for but in our traditions these have been coming on for forever. There is
Exactly.
Phalashruti at the end of every chant. For Aditya Hridayam there is the benefit of health and virility and vigor, because it is something a chant associated with the sun. You wake up early in
Exactly.
the morning, you go up and you look at the rising sun and then do this chant, and the set of sounds there are conducive towards that. So even in the Phalashruti and the story that conveys it, everything revolves around how Rama, who was almost tired and could not, almost getting on the brink of defeat, chants this, faces the sun deity, gathers energy from him, and then emerges victorious. So, and the same goes for Kanakadhara Stotram, which is for prosperity, for Lalita Sahasranamam, which is for prosperity and spiritual upliftment. So, all of these chants from each deity having their own specific phala or attainment. So Saraswati Devi for education, Hayagriva and Saraswati Devi, of course. So these have been traditionally known and kind of accepted in our culture and not really questioned as much. But it definitely helps to go deeper into understanding why that kind of benefits come about. It's definitely good to have a skeptical mind about it, that uh, you really are curious as to
Mm-hmm.
how something happens. But yeah, that curiosity is definitely on the rise. People are more open to these uh, possibilities and are exploring them. But eventually, there is this set education pattern that you look for a proof of authentication from this
A
scientific
laboratory.
inquiry. Yeah, laboratory.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
That
but
somebody, if
those
somebody
thinking,
authenticates
it's
it.
mostly coming from the colonial hangover that we are going through
Yeah,
because
yeah. The spirit of scientific inquiry, that science is somehow the baseline of science is described, is set, laid down
Mhm.
by the West
Exactly.
somehow. So it's only if something, as you said, right? If it's laboratory generated, you
Exactly.
can. It's like a blueprint that works for the same for everybody. It repeats irrespective of all the factors that can influence it. Unless that can happen, they don't consider it as science. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's a different topic.
So Uday, can you, I love that the wisdom that you share about the scientific vastness of Sanskrit. Could you share some key points of that? What is so scientific about Sanskrit? When people think what is so scientific, it's an ancient language, but nobody's talking about it. And of course, the phonetical perfection of Sanskrit is so beautiful. But I want to
Mhm.
hear from you. What is, according to you, the most beautiful scientific aspects that you see in Sanskrit?
Okay, I've so there are many. The best way I can express it, best way I can put it forth is like this. This is not something that I'm saying. I've read it and this resonates with me. A language is generally a tool of expression.
Mm,
That you want to express something, express an idea, express a thought, express something that has happened. Then you use language. So language is a tool for expression. But there are all human faculties can be categorized into two groups. There is input and there is output. Output being expression and input being experience.
mm, mm,
So language, generally, every other language that we speak about, language as a tool has come about in order to express, to uh, take care of the need to express. But Sanskrit is a language of express. Of course, there is a possibility to express, but Sanskrit is a knowledge of experience.
mm, mm,
What I mean by that is uh, the sounds of Sanskrit, the mantras that uh, have been explored and expressed in Sanskrit are realizations of sages. So the experience of sound as it occurs in creation around us led to the creation of Sanskrit alphabet.
mm, mm, mm.
So this can be seen and demonstrably seen again and again in different aspects of Sanskrit. That every single word that you look at, which is associated with different objects around us, have that basis that the sounds used to denote that object and the property of the object being uh, property of that object inherent in it and the sound used to denote it are not two different things. These two are called as vak, which is sound, and
Mhm.
artha, which is the essence of the meaning. So vak and artha are not two different things. They are intertwined and they are inherent within each other. The meaning is contained within the sound. So if I give this example again and again. So Surya, which is the sun, and Urja, which is
Energy.
energy. So that ur sound and this and this goes on. This is this entire subject of study called as nirukta, which roughly translates as etymology of words, as to how deep the etymology of those sounds go. And the root sounds that denote that hold this meaning are called as dhatus. The sound dha itself being that which holds. So dharti, dharana, dhara,
Supports that which
which
supports.
supports that which
Like we have
holds. So
dhatus in
exactly
Ayurveda.
in Ayurveda as well.
Mhm.
So the same concept, right? Something that holds within it is dhatu. So and these and the sound itself, dha, uh, has the innate meaning of holding something.
Mhm, mhm.
So and this refrain can be seen in every word of Sanskrit that we look at. This is looking at just the meanings of it, but of course internally there is an entire another layer of uh, you know relevance. There's another layer of exploration of Sanskrit being a language of experience and being something that impacts human system in a much deeper way. When we go into the system of energy center or the chakras, and each of those chakras having a specific set of sounds
Mhm.
which form the Sanskrit alphabet. So from Mooladhara to Sahasrara, there is a specific, each of them having a specific set of petals as they are
Sound also, yes.
as they are poetically expressed, these lotuses and their petals. But they have these specific set of sounds. So Mooladhara has 4 such sounds associated with it. Swadhisthana has 6. So Manipuraka has 10, Anahata has 12. So these have been expressed in so many different ways in so many different texts as to what are the sounds associated with them and how they correlate with the Sanskrit alphabet. What are the sadhana? What is the different kinds of sadhana pertaining to each of those sounds? What and they are all expressed in terms of uh, poetry and
Mm-hmm.
shlokas and deities that correspond to each of those centers. But there is, of course, an abstract layer of meaning and significance hidden behind all of them, like the Dashavataras being the, can
Mm-hmm.
be correlated with the series of evolution. All these deities also portray these abstract concepts, abstract concepts which correspond to those chakras.
Mm-hmm.
So, how scientific is the Sanskrit alphabet? There are 5 to 6 at least different stories that I know, which which portray each of those levels of significance. One with the human body, one with the creation around us. Each of these, each of the letters of the alphabet also correspond to the Shakti Sthala, Shakti Pithas.
Mm-hmm.
Panchadasha Shakti Pithas across the land, across Bharat, that have been created. So these Panchadasha Shakti Pithas correspond to each letter of the alphabet, and going there, worshipping that Shakti. Shakti is energy, one manifestation of sound at the end of the day. So that sadhana there is supposed to give the siddhi corresponding to that particular sound, which is uh, which is seen as a manifestation of matrika. You,
Mm-hmm.
you might have heard this sound being used to denote the alphabet,
Mm-hmm.
which is matra or matrika, which literally means mother. But Aki Matra, Iki Matra, these speaking people, or even other languages also have this. So these alphabets are denoted with the name of Matra, which also means the sound, which is the sound, and also has the meaning of mother, because they are a manifestation of Goddess Shakti, who is the universal mother,
Mm-hmm.
and who is and that energy, that Shakti, or that sound is what makes us work from within. That is what animates creation. So Shiva and Shakti comes there. So Shiva is the consciousness, that the all-pervading, uh, consciousness, and the cradle in which creation happens. And the energy that is manifest as all material creation is Shakti, or energy, or sound, which is manifest as all these aspects of creation. So she is manifest as all these letters of the Sanskrit alphabet, which correspond again to the human system, which have physical locations that correspond across the land of Bharat.
Mm-hmm.
So these connections and correlations are vast and immense. And just in one of the videos, I demonstrate how the letters of the Sanskrit alphabet are arranged in the way we study them in school, are arranged from the pit of the throat, moving outwards gradually. The
Mm-hmm.
5 rows in which they are divided, the way we practice them in school as an exercise, without really understanding why the sequence has come up. If we look deeper into it, that sequence is exactly the sequence of uttering sounds, and exploring different possibilities of uttering sounds in the vocal cavity. So
Mm-hmm.
the first row are all sounds which originate from the pit of the throat. K, kh, g, gh, ng. So all of them originating from the pit of the throat. And the fifth row, and they move gradually outwards. And the fifth row being sounds that originate by bringing the lips together. Pa,
Mm-hmm.
pa, ba, bha, ma. So from the pit of the throat, gradually moving outwards, ka, cha, ta, ta, pa. All of
You
them
can
moving
actually
gradually
feel
outwards.
like the
Yeah,
whole thing going up from the
yeah,
bottom till the up.
exactly. And in my course called Vakshuddhi, there is another level of, there is another arrangement of these same sounds, where the story goes that all these sounds originated from Shiva's Damaru. There
Mm-hmm.
is one more story that all these sounds represent the skulls that Kalika wears
Mm-hmm.
in her neck. There is another story that that when Shiva was carrying Sati Devi on his shoulders after Daksha Yajna, people who know the story can probably relate to this. When Vishnu wanted to get Shiva out of that zone of grief, he threw his Sudarshan Chakra at Sati Devi and scattered her body across, which it split into 50 different locations. So, and why I came to this point was in one of those stories, which is that the sounds of the Sanskrit alphabet originated from Shiva's Damaru. In that arrangement, which is called as the Maheshwara Sutras, uh, the set of sounds are arranged in such a way that it becomes a mantra in itself.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a pranayama. All the alpa prana, or the sounds that are uttered with little breath, and Mahaprana sounds like kha, gha, pha, dha, tha, all these sounds. The arrangement is in such a way that just uttering that specific sequence again and again works as a mantra on its own, and there's a pranayama that is happening because of the
The sound that
alternative
is being, it
alpha
is like
prana and
giving a
mahaprana sound.
massage to your vocal cords in every
Yeah,
part.
exactly. And there, there is physiological benefit that it clears up the utterance of sound.
Hmm.
It improves your vocal capabilities. There is a spiritual layer to them because all these sounds are what animate you from within. They are what are empowering you to act the way they are, and they correspond to different faculties of the human body.
Hmm.
Entire path of yoga and all these systems of internal well-being uh, work at that level that you energize your system from within. You raise your system to another level of energy so that you can access all those capabilities which are termed as superpowers or extra human powers, but which are well within the human capability. So that, and this is what can be more scientific than this step.
Exactly. I think it's beyond what
And
a laboratory can bring out as a evidence. It's something beyond that.
yeah, I mean, there are many aspects of it which can definitely, maybe we can devise tools to
Understand the frequency of
understand
that.
them. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. To record some phenomena happening either in the nervous system or in the physiologically, which is happening within the body in terms of heat or in terms of, you know,
Hmm.
mostly heat maybe. Uh,
Well,
but
whether we understand about that, at least I can
mm,
tell you some people say, I can't believe you said that word, and they're upset. And then their blood pressure can go up and it changes things. We don't need a laboratory to say that how powerful the words can be.
mm,
The same with
mm,
certain mantras and certain sounds that we pronounce and produce. It definitely has an impact on our energy and our physiology and our
mm,
emotions as well.
mm, true,
And
definitely true.
and Uday, one of your videos that you show about uh, Om,
Mhm.
Omkara, you talk about how the energy of the three phonetical sounds of Om is. Can you share about that?
There is an entire Upanishad which
Yes,
talks about
Om.
the Om itself. Uh, so, um, the shape of Om, the different sounds that come together, the three primordial sounds that come together to form this Omkara, which is known by the name of Pranava, Pranava Nada, or Pranava Shabda, the first sound that uh, that manifest that
Hmm.
came, which from which everything else came forth,
Came out. Yes.
which is known as the Omkara or the Pranava. So what can I tell about it? So the three sounds are Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. As that is one way of putting it. So it's a combination of A, U, and
Hmm.
Uh, so A being the force of creator, the primordial source of creation. And all these three sounds, one of them is associated with the Manipuraka chakra, one with Anahata and one with Vishuddhi. And the source, they also that the A corresponds to Brahma, who is the creator, and that is associated with the Manipuraka chakra, which corresponds to the navel.
And even when you say that word "ah," you actually feel the
Ah,
vibration there.
exactly. Exactly. So, and that is the center of creation. When
Hmm.
we were in our mother's wombs, that is where
The first
that is
energy
where
is the
creation,
umbilical
yeah,
cord came.
started.
Yes.
Yeah, that is our source of creation. And in symbolically, it's said that Brahma is born from Vishnu's navel, the lotus that is born out of Vishnu's navel. So the connections, if we look at how all of these are interlinked with each other, it's very obvious at one level, and at the same time it is not uh, very burdensome knowledge that you have to remember. It's conveyed in terms of beautiful stories. And coming to U, which corresponds to this maintenance center, which corresponds to Vishnu as a deity, is of the heart. And which corresponds to the destructive aspect of creation.
Shiva.
which corresponds to Shiva, is at the pit of the throat. So all of these centers have beautiful stories that correspond these sounds with these all these deities. And these three primal functions are seen in every aspect of creation, from a rock, from an inanimate object, from a blade of grass to a tree or a human being or any other aspect of creation. There is birth, there is life, and there is dissolution. This seems very obvious and very simple at one level. This is like zero, right? It looks
Mm-hmm.
very, it's almost, uh, it doesn't need an explanation that everything in universe has a beginning and a lifespan and death. But accessing that that dimension, accessing these forces that act within ourselves. There is a creative force, there is a maintenance, there is a nourishing force, and there's a force of dissolution and destruction and death. So accessing, bringing those into our own capabilities, that is what that is the possibility, that is the significance of being born as a human being, that all of these forces, which at one level seem to be running our lives unconsciously,
Mm-hmm.
can be taken charge of. So the chant of the pranava shabda, which is a, o, and e, there is an entire system of yoga, which is just nada yoga, which uh, utilizes these three sounds in different ways to raise that energy once again and bring those forces of nature uh, which gave birth to human creation in this way, that we are able to take hold of them, take charge of them, and make them work for our well-being. Somebody who knows that there is something valuable here want to immediately approach me asking, okay, I now have to read the Vedas or the Upanishads. Teach me, how do I get there? I say, take the first step. You have to get the sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
Because even a small addition of a where it's not supposed to can negate the meaning completely.
Exactly.
All of these practices, visiting temples or doing the yajna or doing pranayama or dhyana or bhakti, all of them are different paths to empower us from within.
Raising your vibrations in such a way that
Yes.
you are able to perform at your best self.
Yes.